Hello, welcome to today's HR Huddle. I'm Tamera Loerzel, and here's Jennifer Wilson with me. Thanks, Jen, for joining me today. And we thought we would spend some time today, since we're post a major tax deadline last week with 415. We know there's some other audit deadlines and other projects and service line deadlines still coming up and pending. But as we were thinking about emerging from either project deadlines or these big peak deadlines that we have, whether they're, in our department or, by clients or whatever we might be working on, even internal within HR, you have performance review season and compensation season. But it's like we feel like we come out of some of these big things and then go like, okay, now what? And we get mired into the next detail. It's like our heads lifted for a brief moment. We might sip a breath of air instead of taking some big gulps of air and pausing and saying, what should we create next? Or what Jen and I were just talking about a moment ago is, what should we manifest? What should we cause? What should we create? And we are big visionaries. We are also big believers in the power of putting something out in the universe, and it will start to line up and support what you are trying to create or what you are trying to manifest. So we thought we would spend a little bit of time talking about that today and doing some visioning, a little bit of reflection, but more future oriented. What do we want to create? What do we want to manifest for ourselves, for our team? What do we want it to look like a year from now? So we could say post-peak period next year, April, we come back. Jen, we've got to remember this. Caroline, we got to remember this. What did you manifest? That would be a great follow-up HR huddle to compare notes and check against each other. So Jen, what do you want to add to that as we are setting up, or where do you want to start with that?
Well, just the power of visualization and this big picture idea, Tamera. Tamera and I talked about this, and we could have done let's talk about what's next now that the spring peak period is starting to wane, and we were making a list, and we were like, man, we've made this list a bunch. And over time, our business is 25 years. So we've come out of a few peak seasons with the profession, and it feels like we sort of all say the same thing. So we were like, wait a minute. What we don't want to do is be powerless about our circumstances or feel like nothing big can change. We don't want to get mired in those little details Tamera talked about, where we might, just sort of like all of a sudden focus on like post busy season, post-mortem or whatever, where we're like, next time, put this person on the CC, or whatever. And it's like this tiny improvement that might make a difference in the whole process. But we want us to think big. And so one of the things I want you to picture is like creating a visual image of what it is that it'll be like a year from now when you come out of the peak period. And the way to do that is to consider like a piece of poster board or something, going out and getting a piece of poster board. I have one that sits next to me in my office, and I'm going to make a big mess. I didn't think about pulling it out, so I'm going to probably make noise while I drop 1,000 things on the way. But I have a big poster board with pictures, and you can't see it, but it's my husband and I created this together, and this is our vision board, and we do it for 5 years at a time, and it has his work stuff and it has my work stuff. Tamera's over here featured right here. She's on my vision board, and so I want you to picture, like, what would you visualize? What pictures would you conjure that would make your work and life different 5 years from now, or even 3 years from now, or even 1 year from now? And I had a huge piece of poster board, and that could be daunting. You can get a little piece of poster board like you would buy for a kid for a elementary school assignment or something. It doesn't have to be
versus the high school science project with the tripod.
Well, and mine is like, I don't know, obnoxious. Because Brian and I did it together, and we had a lot. We have a whole corner on travel. So what would you manifest? And yes, we want you to manifest some changes in the professional arena, right? So it's not just personal manifestation, but there should be some personal too. And sometimes when we think about this, post peak season, now what? Sometimes we just go all personal or all professional. We want a little mix of both.
Right.
And some of the categories that you could put on, the way we did it was we first wrote it. We wrote our stuff and we created, I think, 9 categories because we had a monster board. So you can't have 9 categories or you'll have to have microscopic pictures. So maybe, I don't know, 6 categories or something. And one of ours was wellness. So we were really committed to what are we going to do from a wellness perspective. One was travel, I mentioned. But you may want to say like, what will be different? Even let's picture just for HR. Let's create one for the HR function. And maybe we're not even putting anything personal on that board. And we have 6 categories. What's going to be different in the attraction of talent? And what will be different in our, the inspiration and motivation in our firm, the way it feels to work here, culture, so whatever it is, we want you to stop and be less literal and detailed and more visual and possibilities oriented and say 1 year from now, what's it going to be like?
Yes, I love that. And that means, this is very hard for me, to stay out of the weeds and the how to. You have to keep lifting, and it's okay. You'll start to go there, but then you got to pull yourself back or have somebody else drag you back. It's very natural to do. And we keep saying, what are we picturing out there? And then the how-tos. And if we capture some ideas, write them down so we don't lose them. Let's not recreate or regenerate that. But you could get, again, mired into the details. And we are not trying to solve. We are not trying to figure out how to. We are not even making assignments right now. We are just doing some dreaming and some brainstorming about how we would like it to look. And Jen, you said something about the individuals. I think this is a good exercise for the individuals. And maybe we should tell our fun committee about this too, by the way, as we're talking about this. But we could do this as one of our brown bag lunches that we do quarterly. And, as individuals are emerging, you were talking about sometimes it's all personal, like, I'm never going to do that again. And I'm going to cut my hours to 40 hours and I'm going to do this and this. And that's all how. Or we get to our tax and, clients are, if they're not in by March 15th, we're going to extend them. And, we make a list of all the house. Instead, lift up and say, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? Like we want all tax returns, individual tax returns done by April 10th or April, whatever. And then I'm not going to get into the how. There's a whole bunch of hows now. Or we want to, have our, business clients really taken care of, and the, client accounting department, has the setup, and we're ready to, do the taxes, and the handoff is seamless, for the clients. Or on the personal side, I want to attend my daughters in dance during this time. And maybe I want to attend the recitals and the practices that she has. Or I want to make sure that we have some time away. And maybe that's 2 weekends that I can schedule. But I want to have some time away.
Spring break vacation.
Yes.
Spring break vacation.
I saw a couple firms publishing that as a recruiting and attraction mechanism with their flex time and PTO. And they say, you want to go skiing on spring break? No problem. You can do that here. Like anything's possible. And that's the thing. We can't go, well, it's busy season. I can't do that. We're dreaming. That's another limitation. We don't get to squash ideas. Put it on the board or put it on the list. Then we'll figure out all the other stuff later.
Yes. And, we are hearing of firms who are able to do tax returns, very simple tax returns using AI and automation with very little to no human interaction. That would be pasted up on my board. A picture of that or the concept of that, something that stood for that as a for instance. But like, what are the big ideas and what are the big things that would get you excited, draw you forward into the future? A vision is a destination in the future that I want to go to myself, but that others want to go to with me. And it's the end game, as Tamera said. It's not the route or the exact, who's driving at what periods on this road trip we're doing.
Right.
It's just, hey, we're going to go from here to there. Let's do it. And so it should be without constraint, and we won't get it all necessarily. You don't necessarily get it all, but boy, you really can't get it at all if you don't dream about it. And if you stand down there in the weeds and the little details and the punch list and the next, to-do list coming out of this, you've got to start sort of big. And I think it could be like wellness. I'm trying to think, I wish I could name the person, but somebody in my Twitter feed, in the tax Twitter feed, was, really committed to wellness during peak season. And they had never really accomplished it. They had always let it go, stopped exercising, ate unhealthy at the desk, didn't drink the water, all the stuff that we could do. And most of us could totally relate to that. And it was so fun for them to put a stake in the ground last year after their annual meeting, their conference, unconference, they call it, for that person to say, it's not going to be that way. And then to watch that happen, then take the steps to make that happen. They joined our exercise streak, so they were starting the fitness in the fall over the holidays, and it was just super cool. And so what are you trying to manifest, and how could you use this opportunity? This is a completion, but it's also a new beginning right now. And it's spring, the time of new beginnings, and the time of possibilities, and the time of hope. And one thing that I'm really concerned about with our country, we're having a lot of uncertainty and concern, and certainly a lot of mixed messages in our media, and it could be overwhelming, and we could easily be like, I don't have any power here. I'm powerless over what happens next. And this is a way of taking your power back and taking it back into your sphere. And the same goes with firms. If I get to run talent, that's all. I can't control the rest of this stuff, but what could I make my vision for the talent function be? How could I take my power back there? And how can I make my life and the life of my team members and the customers or clients that we serve better 1 year from now? What are the cool big things we could do?
And we could go ask, Jen. You're making me think. Like, I could go ask my service line leaders, and maybe my, I don't know, you could do a poll. You could do just one-on-one quick, on the street. If you were to pick your top 2 things for talent, what would they be that you would say 1 year from now we're doing what? And like, they can't say how or all, and nothing is off the table. Because then you could take it back and say, where does that fit in your dream? And where does that fit in your team's dream as the HR team, following that thread, that line of thinking? And how do we create our vision for a year from now? And then it's including those other clients, internal clients in this case, but then also we could go external to the recruiting and candidates and, our staff and everybody else, and figure out what are those top priorities. And, you probably did some of that together, Jen, for you and Brian, is like, what do you each want to do? And then say, okay, what's now really going to go on the board? And here it is. Here's what's going on the board. So we're not stuck with anything. I think we get stuck. Like, we feel like we get stuck with something, and it doesn't. And then you have that board, and then you say, all right, here's the ones we're working on the next quarter. And then you can start doing the plan and all the things that we do to make it happen and to action it. But we could get input too, and go ask and go, find out what other people would like to see and what they dream about or what they wish for. And it can be very, very simple to do. It doesn't have to be this big survey project or anything like that. It can be a very simple way to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And, Brian and I negotiated some of it, but also because we did it separate. So, we came up with our ideas separately. It helped us sort of see where each other was headed, where we could identify places where there could be discord or, the wrong direction from one of us to, opposite directions or whatever you want to call it. And discuss that and understand it. But it also was like there was some cool possibility that if we together had tried to do it, we might not have generated as big or cool an idea.
Right.
And so it was sort of apart from each other that we were able to go, what if we did this? And then bringing it back, the other person was like, what do you mean by that? And then hearing a little bit like, yeah, we could do that. So, and this is, this exercise isn't like, you have to be careful that you're not going to try to make it perfect, or that you're not going to try to like overthink it. Like, oh my gosh, I have to really analyze this and I have to do tons of data. And, Tamara said, ask some people. I think that's a good idea. I also think the back of a napkin works perfect for the first draft. It's almost better spontaneously coming out of you to start. And I would start with words or ideas, and then you could start getting input from others and see if it changes changes or knocks any of your ideas around, or modifies them, or edits them, or reprioritizes them. And then at some point you take them from words. And what he and I did, we just used a white piece of paper, a copy paper, and we divided it into the same thing we pictured the board to be. And then we just wrote them in the sections, and then we talked it through. Then we created a master, and then we divvied up who was going to go get pictures for which section. and we cut them out of magazines, and then also printed them off the internet, and we pasted them on using a glue stick. And that thing sat on our, our hearth at our living room fireplace for a year. And we walked by it and stared at it and said, where are we here? But just by doing it, some stuff happened. I put the Amalfi Coast, a picture of the Amalfi Coast in the travel section. And I don't know, within 6 months or so, I had a client invitation to go do a conference in Italy. And we had a chance to get to the Amalfi Coast. I said, Brian, geez, our vision board is at work, and but lots of stuff started just lining up for us off of it. And it's the power of intention, the power of manifestation, the power of teamwork, in the case of my husband. And if you're doing it at home, we encourage, whoever your key people are at home. My daughter's input, we had a section on our girls, so we were like, kind of words, we knew graduations were going to be one of the words we were putting there, but other things that they would like to manifest, we made sure showed up in that section. So anyway, Tamara and I just really thought that we should be calling you to a bigger picture way of thinking about, now what can I cause the rest of the spring, summer, moving into fall, and into that second peak period for many firms. And talent may be entering a peak period,
right?
But you can still manifest what you want it to look like, and visualize it, and have a vision for it, and articulate some of those key ideas, and that will cause it to happen.
Yeah. And it's not goals. This isn't your goals yet. This isn't a plan. This isn't a roadmap. This is, a vision. And be open to something bigger and better and different than even what you put on the board. And it could be a cool exercise to do with, team members that want to participate, or, as an individual yourself, to do, like Jen was saying, for your life. And you would have your professional side of it. You might have a wellness section, if you have children, or you're married, or a partner, or romance, dating. Maybe you want to manifest a partner. That should go on there. You could put other things like your special interest. Travel happens to be one of Jen's and mine. So travel has a, corner up there that we have. And it could, if you're a foodie, it could be the, different kinds of restaurants that you want to eat at, or maybe different chefs that you like. But you could have a lot of fun if animals are your thing. Something around animals could be up there. But pick a few things and then say, what do I want to manifest here? And you can do it for the next 5 years. You can do it for the next year, and just see what comes up. If it's a year, keep it smaller. Get a smaller piece of cardstock. If it's 5 years, get a big poster board. And so we can scale it. And, if you're daunted by 5 years, practice with 1 year. Just take it and play with it and have fun with it, and get input and buy-in, and people will be inspired by it and ask you about it, and want you to succeed with those things. They might even become your partners in some of those things. You never know, because they might go, I was thinking about that too. I would love to engage with you at the Humane Society, or I was thinking about traveling and where my next destination is going to be. And we should plan a trip together. And who else would want to go with us? Or tell me more about what you are thinking about for a partner. We could do a whole session, Jen, I know, on manifesting a partner in romance, because we do that as well. But it really makes a difference to dream and share it with others and engage in it. And it will start to show up. So we hope that you play with this idea and let us know your thoughts. If you've done something similar, let us know that too. If you go and try it and play with it, and we're interested in what your results are, how it went for you, and how you maybe made it your own, how you were creative with it. So keep us posted on that. And we will see you next time on our next HR Huddle. Thank you for joining us today or whenever you view this recording, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.